You ever put 200 hours into Red Dead Redemption, lasso a guy off his horse, and think, man, I was born in the wrong century? Congratulations! You're an idiot. Mostly because that game takes place decades after the era it's cosplaying. And also because my roommate Dennis just did something unbelievably stupid. With a garage sale pocket watch, and now he's actually stuck in 1878. No honor meter, no fast travel, just Dennis. I'd feel worse about this if Dennis hadn't spent the last 6 months telling everyone at parties that he was basically a cowboy at heart. Buddy, you drive a Kia. You once cried because a Chipotle ran out of guac. So, while I figure out how to get him back, which, full disclosure, I do not know how to do, I put together a little survival guide for Dennis, for you, for anyone who's ever romanticized an era with a 40-year life expectancy and 0 indoor plumbing. Let's go get my roommate. First things first, geography. The Wild West sounds like one specific place, like it's got a Wikipedia pin drop and a gift shop. It's not. Historians generally use it to describe a sprawling chunk of the country from roughly the Mississippi to the Pacific. Plains, deserts, mountains, all of it. It's less one town and more 1/3 of an entire continent, which is a pretty big margin of error for Dennis to be lost in. The land itself was staggering. Massive grasslands, herds of bison that stretched to the horizon, mountain ranges tall enough to make a grown man reconsider his life choices. And it was already home to dozens of distinct indigenous nations, each with their own governments, economies, and relationships to that land going back thousands of years, a detail Hollywood tends to treat as a rounding error. So, it's basically untouched paradise, you're thinking. Sure, for about 11 minutes. Then the railroads show up. Ah, there's Dennis. Hey, big guy. Wow, you already lost a shoe. Incredible start. The stretch of time people usually mean by the Wild West is pretty narrow, roughly the end of the Civil War through the 1890s. Which, coincidentally, is also the exact window where the U.S. government decided the fastest way to develop this land was to build a railroad straight through it and simply not think too hard about who was already living there. The bison, which indigenous nations across the plains depended on for food, clothing, tools, and spiritual life, were slaughtered by the millions, partly for hides, partly for sport, and very much on purpose, as a way to starve resistance into submission. Tens of millions of animals, gone in a few decades. For scale, imagine every stadium in America simultaneously realizing they're out of nachos forever. Except it's the actual thing an entire way of life depended on. Dennis, don't try to pet that one. It's not real. Also, it's asleep. Also, it will kill you. Okay, Dennis needs a job because apparently in 1878 you can't just figure it out and live off your parents' Venmo. Let's look at his options. Option 1, ranch hand. This is the one everyone pictures. Horse, hat, wide open plains, freedom. In reality, it's a 14-hour workday for about $1. Herding cattle across hundreds of miles to reach a railroad town where they can be sold. It is, by all accounts, extremely boring. You spend the vast majority of your time doing repair work, watching cattle not do anything, and sleeping on the ground next to a horse that could kill you by sneezing wrong. The one genuinely exciting part of the job, the cattle stampede, is exciting the way car accident is exciting. And no, brushing your horse doesn't max out a bond meter out here. It just makes the horse slightly less likely to end your career early. Dennis is currently explaining to a horse that he's more of a dog person, and the horse does not care. Option 2, prospector. Old fever brought entire towns into existence almost overnight. Thousands of people uprooted their whole lives on the promise of striking it rich, and a small, statistically insignificant number of them actually did. The rest got the other package: brutal manual labor, collapsing mine shafts, toxic gas exposure, and water so contaminated it basically counted as a fourth food group. Life expectancy in a boomtown mining camp made a ranch hand's schedule look like a spa retreat. Dennis just asked me if there's a beginner-friendly gold mine. There was not, historically, a beginner-friendly gold mine. Option 3, shopkeeper. Boring, sure, but boring in that you might actually survive this way. Most people who moved west didn't end up as outlaws or gunslingers. They opened stores, ran boarding houses, became blacksmiths, or, in a lot of cases, worked land as homesteaders under federal programs that handed out plots to anyone willing to build on them and stick around for 5 years. It's not a movie, it's a Tuesday. But a Tuesday where you keep all your teeth. Dennis picked shopkeeper. Smart. Boring, but smart. Now, housing. If Dennis is out on the plains, there's a real chance he's not building a log cabin, because logs require trees, and the plains are famously light on trees. So, sod house. You cut bricks directly out of the earth and stack them into a house made of dirt, grass, bugs, and whatever that grass was previously growing on top of. It's cheap, it's insulated. It also leaks when it rains, which means a heavy storm turns your living room into a lightly seasoned mudslide. Dennis, I know it smells like a basement. That's never met a dehumidifier, but that is the house. That's just the house now. For a little upgrade in ambience, some families papered their walls with old newspapers to block drafts, which meant your interior decorating and your primary source of news were the exact same object. Dennis just informed me the wall next to his bed is running. 6-month-old grain futures, riveting stuff. Let's talk hygiene, because this is the part where romanticizing the past falls apart fastest. Bathing was an event, not a routine, often a once-a-week affair, water-hauled and heated by hand, shared by the whole household before it got dumped out. Laundry was an entire day's labor involving lye soap that could take the skin off your knuckles, right along with the dirt. Dental care was, generously, hope for the best. Doctors weren't always close by, and when they were, medicine was still catching up to basic ideas like maybe wash your hands before surgery. Which brings us to my personal favorite, the traveling medicine show. A guy rolls into town with a wagon full of tonics that are essentially just alcohol, opium, and vibes. Hires actors to pretend to be miraculously cured audience members and rides out of town before anyone develops symptoms. It's basically a 19th century multi-level marketing scheme, except the product will also poison you. Dennis just bought a bottle of something called Dr. Higgins Miracle Restorative off a guy with a wagon. Dennis, we talked about this for fun, and there wasn't a ton of it. Options included drinking, gambling, church socials, the occasional traveling theater troupe, and, in bigger towns, saloons that doubled as one of the only social hubs around. Saloons weren't the non-stop shootout venues the movies suggest. Most days, most towns were pretty quiet. Guns were common, but so were local ordinances requiring you to check your firearm at the edge of town, which, shocking twist, actually cut down on shootings quite a bit. The genuinely dangerous stuff wasn't outlaws. It was disease, infection, childbirth, and plain old accidents, which combined to make the airway deadlier than any duel at high noon. Statistically, Dennis is in more danger from that miracle restorative than from a gunfight. He just took a sip. He immediately regrets it. He describes the taste as if turpentine had a personality. So, big picture. Was the Wild West the lawless, romantic, gunslinger's paradise pop culture soulless? Not really. It was mostly hard labor, isolation, bad food, worse medicine, and a federal government aggressively clearing land that already had people on it. So it could hand that land to guys like Dennis. It was, to be fair, a place where a huge number of people built something out of almost nothing. New towns, new lives, real communities, often at a scale and pace that's genuinely impressive. It just also came at a cost that cowboy movie marketing has spent a century quietly leaving out. Of the trailer. Dennis, buddy, you good? You've been standing there for 10 minutes.
I don't want to be a shopkeeper anymore. I want to go home. I miss my Kier.
Yeah, I figured. Let's go find that pocket watch. The Wild West, dusty, dangerous, occasionally poisonous, and nowhere near as fun as it looks in the movies. 5 out of 10 stars. Would not recommend the miracle restorative.